and welcome to the first episode of Two Sides, the podcast with me and my friend Sam.
That's me.
Say hello to everybody.
Hey.
So, today's episode is going to focus on Michael Jackson and cancel culture and the impact that it has not only on Michael Jackson, but just as a whole. Michael Jackson is just going to be the catalyst of this. And then we're going to be talking about so this episode is going to be filmed streamed in two parts. So we're going to have one episode where we just talk about cancel culture and Michael Jackson and his career and everything. And then we talk about the allegations, the second episode that we do. For those of you guys who are watching the VOD, let us know what your thoughts on this are, because this, I feel, in general, is a really important conversation that we should be having. And this is something that I, for sure, not just with Michael Jackson, but with other celebrities as well, I'm very passionate about talking about. I am very opinionated, and, the reason why we open this podcast is for you guys, the viewers, to feel like it is okay to share your opinions and give all sides of the story. By the way, before we go ahead and jump into it, we'll just explain who we are. So I'm Caitlin. I've been doing YouTube for about, 8 years off and on, not really that professionally, but I really want to get into professional YouTube this year and the years to come. Sam is, you want to introduce yourself?
I can explain me.
Yes.
So I've done YouTube on and off for about 5 years, but not seriously. I'd like to take it seriously. And our catalyst for this was we had a really good conversation, so we thought maybe we could share our opinions.
Yes, and we want to create a platform for you guys, the audience, to feel the same way. And the name idea came from us living on two sides of the world, but also giving two sides of, our opinions and what we think. So today is going to be about cancel culture and the impact on that, and Michael Jackson being probably one of the most hated people in the world when it came to this stuff. I mean, he was super talented. We all knew him for his songs, but the truth is, he had a very sad life because due to all the allegations, not just that, but also talking about lawsuits and everything like that. And we just want to share our thoughts and opinions on how we feel about cancel culture and the impact on that. So, Sam, do you want to give your thoughts and open the conversation?
Okay, so I would like to kind of give some slight Michael Jackson background in a kind of wider cultural context, which is the kind of two most important things about him. Was he was kind of at the peak of celebrity when the idea of celebrity was at its peak in the 80s and 90s. And in the 80s was kind of his particular peak of his fame and adoration. But it's totally changed now because we have no celebrities that are on his level, and the society has become very fragmented.
Yes, I agree. And, I also feel like with the Me Too movement, I feel like this is kind of a touchy subject to touch upon, but I think it's really important to also talk about as well, because I think it's a contributing factor. I think Me Too as a movement, if it's used correctly, it can be used for greatness. But there's also people that manipulate that and try to use the Me Too movement to silence real victims. And we will talk about the cases in the next episode. We'll get into the, Jordy Chandler case and the current case that we have right now with Wade Robson and James Safechuck. And if I'm going to be 100% honest, Wade Robson and James Safechuck are perfect examples of abusing that Me Too movement because of the fact that Wade Robson, people don't want to do their research on this. But I've done multiple hours of research, hundreds of hours probably. There was a point where I spent 7 days a week, every single day, just researching this so I know what I'm talking about. Because
this is a very big, passionate thing for you.
Yes, with this particular issue, I don't even know what it was to make me so passionate about this. I think it was because I was always a fan of MJ. I always grew up with his music, and my mother and father, they played his music all throughout my life, all throughout my youth, but I don't know the sudden impact and what made me want to research him a little bit more. I think it was due to Leaving Neverland, and when I heard how one-sided it was, I was mad. The thing that made me so mad about Leaving Neverland is it was so one-sided. There was not enough argument, or there wasn't enough reasonable doubt, so to say. They had these alleged victims.
Okay, yeah.
But they didn't have the other side, the Jackson family, to speak on the other side. So
yes,
I think
yes.
they were so quick to cancel him due to that. What do you have to say about that, Sam?
So, I was going to say we have to kind of keep that for the next episode in a certain sense.
Yes.
But I think we should start a little bit with some of his life as we jumping off the point.
Obviously, we all know Michael Jackson was part of the Jackson 5. He started when he was only 5. Quite a...
Actually, he showed his talent when he was 2 years old?
Yeah, he would, Catherine said that, he would dance to the beat of the washing machine, yes.
Yeah.
And then because Joe Jackson, which was his father, who was a very abusive guy, but Joe Jackson...
Yes, and we must talk about the paradox that created, but go on.
Yes, you want to interject?
Okay, so I'm going to interject that as I was reviewing my research in preparation for this, it's Michael is very, very open about the level of abuse and the type of abuse, but he also credits his father, Joe Jackson, for his slick performance skills.
Yes.
Because if they got anything wrong, he would throw them against the wall or beat them. And Joe Jackson was very reticent about the fact that Michael was the leader of the group because he didn't feel much connection to Michael.
Yes, I don't even think, Joe was hey, make Michael the leader of the group. I think it was either Jermaine or Tito or something that was the front man. And then as Michael got older and betrayed more talent, that's when he became the front guy.
I do remember a documentary where it was Joe that decided, but it was he reluctantly decided.
Yes. Yes, it was Catherine, his mother, who had that view, and said, Joe, you should give Michael a chance because he shows potential. But what I was talking about with Leaving Neverland, and we'll get into that in a whole another episode, but going back to the impact of cancel culture, it was it was so it was immediate. You know what I'm saying? Due to the fact that he had a rough upbringing, he really didn't have much of a childhood.
At all.
Yes, people don't know that, like, at all. He had no childhood. He had no simple pleasures of childhood, like eating cereal with his hands or going out with his friends at the playground. He couldn't do that. He was...
Yes, and actually a lot of the kids really disliked the whole family for, like, not for, like, disowning them and not being in their community.
Yeah. And due to that, you know, Michael didn't really develop what you consider adult-like qualities. Because,
no, he didn't at all. It's. Do you want to go into more detail about that?
like, usually, psychologists say that from, like, the age of, like, 5 to the age of, like, 10, those are, like, really crucial years. You know, those are, like, really crucial years for you to develop some sort of psychological understanding of how to be a child.
Yes, and that is also when the brain is most developing. Well, actually, I think it might be the teenage years, but somewhere around there.
Yes, and when you're not subjected to any of those things, your brain and yourself as the adult is going to want to compensate for those years. So when people, you know, say, oh, he had a theme park and he had, you know, all of these things, it was due to the fact that he had to compensate for his lost time because he wasn't allowed to be a child, so he created all of that behind the gates of his house. And
yes, and that is the reason why he never adopted most social norms.
Right, and you guys also have to kind of understand, for those of you guys who really aren't familiar, Michael couldn't walk down the street. You know, he wasn't someone that could just walk down the street to get a cup of coffee. With, you know, it was a level of fame that I don't think anyone can even comprehend.
We'll never see that level of fame again. And this started happening when he was like 11 years old.
Yes, and he was making millions upon millions of dollars when he was a minor. So think about that as a level of pressure it has on a child. And when you literally have no social interaction besides your brothers and besides your family and besides business, you can't develop properly. And that's why he was so shunned and what's the word?
Ostracized.
Yeah, ostracized and closed in because he didn't have those experiences. Like, it does affect your psychology. It's proven. It does affect your
yes,
human brain.
And when was Off the Wall out?
That was in the 79, I want to say.
79, maybe it was 80. But when he had control over his life, he descended into his own childhood world almost immediately. Like, after he bought Neverland, that was kind of the beginning of the end of him living in a world in which other people can understand. He had, like, his own separate reality. Almost immediately.
Oh, absolutely. And the one thing that people don't really understand also is he was very open, guys. Like, he did not hide anything from the world. Meaning, like, you know, people always question, why did he have sleepovers with children, right? he openly admitted that on live TV.
Which was stupid, but of course he doesn't come from the same reality as us.
However, that also kind of betrays his innocence as well, because if you are presented with a real serial pedophile, let's switch this. If you're presented with a real serial pedophile, would a serial pedophile admit that?
No, they wouldn't. However, he did fit like some criteria, but not all of it, which is why he had so much suspicion.
Right.
Yes.
And when I also want to go into the, plastic surgery and why do you get so much plastic surgery and all of these things, because people will also throw that into the conversation.
Yes, they would. I think we need to keep possibly that out for the next few minutes.
Yes.
Until we finish this part.
Yes. Do you want to add anything else?
I also think that in his desire to separate himself from his family, he separated himself from the world, and he never came out of that kind of separation. Well, I'm not sure, because when I was watching This Is It, he was more social, but
yes.
I mean, his mental state is open to interpretation at that point in his life.
Oh, yes. Like, I genuinely, I've watched This Is It probably over, 50, 60 times. I can't even calculate at this point. But I've watched that documentary a lot of times, and I have analyzed his, mental state at the time. And I do think he was really excited to want to tour again. I do think he was, in a sense, needing that because he felt most at home. Because, guys, he knew that stage from 5 to 50 years old. That's five
Yes.
decades of performing. And that's all he did. That's all he knew. He didn't know anything
Yes.
else. He really didn't know how to relax. He didn't really know how to, take time for himself, because all he was doing was entertaining or writing music. So
Yes, and he has always said the only time that he is really happy is when he is performing.
yes, like I genuinely believe that, and because I feel like if he were to have stopped, because he died performing, guys, like that was the last thing he did, a rehearsal. You know what I'm saying? Like, so he was born to perform and he died performing. Like that's a true performer if you literally die doing it.
He lived by the sword, he died by the sword.
Exactly. And I think, he didn't know how to relax. He didn't know how to cope with his childhood trauma. So in that kind of childhood despair, all he could was work. Because if you really think about it, if you're presented with yourself and you're alone all the time and you're alone in your thoughts, like just in general as a whole, it is going to take a toll on you. And I don't think Michael could handle that. So that's why he was always performing. And I know I know Neverland was his sacred place and he loved that place. But even then, I don't think he knew how to relax. I think he...
No, not at all.
Yeah, he didn't know. And going back to This Is It, I've watched that documentary a lot of times. And, I could genuinely say that he was probably the most excited to do a tour I've ever seen him be excited for.
Yes, I mean, he wasn't initially excited at all, but once he realized
absolutely.
the thing about his kids,
Yeah.
because he wanted to show his kids while he could still do it. And for them to understand why he was followed everywhere by paparazzi, why people swarmed him all the time.
Yeah, but I also believe that in my solid opinion, that they overworked him to the max.
I mean that's an opinion, but there is some credence to that opinion.
I don't believe in, because I've seen him, and in that point of his life, and he looked so frail and quite frankly just tired.
Yes, he did.
He looked very tired, but he still wanted to do it. So in a way, I think they were working him to death. Because originally the tour was only supposed to be
10 shows.
10 shows in the UK, and that was it. Like, I don't even think he wanted... Well, originally I think...
He never wanted to do 50, ever.
I don't think he wanted to even... he never wanted to do 50. He just wanted to do 10 in England and possibly go to other places. But not do as many. But that was going to be it. And, I feel like when... this is a conspiracy that we can talk about another time. But, I genuinely feel like once he kind of denied those 50 shows, even though they sold out within 10 minutes, I even remember them going on sale. Like... You know what I mean?
Yeah, I remember the press conference.
Yes.
I wasn't such a fan as you were at the time.
The press conference, to me, was, in the back of my head, I was like, it's probably not gonna happen.
I remember when I was young, I said to my mom, he's not gonna be able to do it.
He genuinely looked so sickly, in my opinion.
And very gaunt. He was very gaunt and almost aged, like he was aging very quickly.
Yes, and that is due to, you can age very quickly due to drug abuse, which unfortunately
we can't deny that happened. Yeah.
Oh yes, like he definitely had a dependency on painkillers and everything like that. That's without question. Like, you can't deny that. He had a dependency on painkillers, and then he had a dependency on propofol as well.
And Diprovan, right? And Valium.
Yes, and the propofol was to help him sleep, but it was not used. It's not meant to be used in a...
No, it was used extremely wrongly.
Yes, and it's meant to be an anesthetic, guys. Like, it's a anesthetic.
It is. That's what it is.
Ultimately, to knock you out when you're going to surgery. So it was a coma-like state that he was in. He wasn't technically sleeping. He was just
okay. Let me just tell you this.
He was heavily medicated.
I was watching a Michael Jackson documentary earlier.
Yeah.
And it talks about, in the book we've been reading, which is called Michael Jackson Untouchable, which is really good.
Yes.
And it talked about that Comrade Murray had this recording on his phone of him being like really drug-addled.
Yes, I've listened to that.
And they started to play that, and I was in shock.
I've listened to it, and it's very sad to listen to.
I had no idea it was that bad.
But I also genuinely believe that the doctor enabled the amount of consumption that he was taking.
Well, even Arnold Klein enabled him in every way that he... Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, it wasn't his choice, because ultimately when you do take drugs, that is your choice that you're making for yourself, But however, when you have a supplier of that drug and a constant supplier, they're the enabler.
Yeah,
they
if we
supply that
I'll say my final point. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
I'll say my final point, which is that Jackson actually selected Murray on the grounds that he gave him propofol before.
I'm sorry, what was that? You cut off.
Jackson hired Conrad Murray because he gave him propofol previously.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And he was like his family doctor, I suppose. But, yeah, I just genuinely believe that in any case, he was taken advantage of. In all cases.
In his life.
Yes. In all cases.
His entire life.
His entire life, he was taken advantage of by his own family, by Conrad Murray, just in general. And it's very sad to know that this man who devoted 50 years of his life, literally to the stage, can be treated with such disrespect. And
yeah.
I genuinely believe, and that the reason why that he was canceled or whatever, and I know it's the 21st century, and I know we're a little bit more liberal, but there are racist people out there. And there are bigoted people out there that want to see people get down. And I genuinely believe that it was a race thing.
You could be right. I'm gonna signal that we might have to wrap up soon. So do we want to summarize?
Yes. So this was just like a synopsis of the real story about Michael Jackson. And then the second episode that we're going to do is going to probably be a little bit longer than this episode, because we're going to go severely into depth about cases and like cancel culture and all of that, and what those cases told us, and what the cases told the media, and how the media manipulated a lot of the evidence and a lot of what was going on during those cases, starting from 1993 to all the way up till 2005. But we could also talk about like his lawsuits and stupid shit like that, because
we'll see, because we might have to do a third episode.
This might be a 3-part podcast that we do, and then we'll obviously talk about other things as well. The way we're going to format this podcast is that we're going to talk about something that we are either me or Sam is educated on, and it could be something really heavily, something like the Michael Jackson thing. We were both educated on it, so we could give both sides. But say for example, Sam will present me with an issue that he may want to discuss on the podcast that I don't know much about. He would be the leader of that conversation and kind of educate me and lead you guys. And one week I could also be educated on something, and then I would be the leader. So basically, this podcast was just the synopsis of the real story about Michael Jackson. The backstory, yes. The man.
That's a good title. The real story of Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I'm gonna change that. And I'm most likely going to change the thumbnail and keep this thumbnail that you guys are seeing for the next episode, because then we'll get more into cancel culture in the next podcast. But I want to thank you guys all for listening in and watching. Do you have any closing arguments, Sam? Do you want to say anything?
No. I just want to say that it's been really fun, and see you next episode.
I'll see you guys in the next episode. If you guys are interested in sticking around, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and also ding that notification bell.
Click the bell.
Click the bell every time we go, obviously live, or we post a video, you get notified. And we don't have any social media yet for this particular podcast, but we will let you know when we open one. yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. Please let us know what your opinions are on this. We open this podcast to give you our opinion, but we also want to hear from you, and we want to hear your takes on what you guys think. It could also be negative.
One last thing. I will be probably on Monday putting out, or Katie will be putting out the fully edited version where both our sound qualities are really good.
Yes. So we will be posting a video and uploading this, but this was a live episode just to see, we're testing the waters and we're seeing what works and what doesn't. This is the first episode after all, so we're just going to do some trial and error to start this podcast, but it has been a great pleasure discussing this with you guys, and do let us know your feedback, because we open this podcast for you guys to share your opinions and share all sides of what you guys believe. It also could be negative and positive. It could be constructive feedback, or it could be good feedback. We want to hear all feedback and tell us what we could do better, or things like that. So thank you guys so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you guys all. We will see you guys all in the next episode. Okay, guys? Bye.
Okay, you can stop recording.
I did.
Excellent. How did you feel
I think that went